Today I will be showing you how to build this golden pagoda in ARK Survival Ascended using the Golden Dynasty custom cosmetic. Hello there survivors and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended again. Today we're going to be building this pagoda, which is perfect if you want to use it as an aviary. It does rely quite heavily on the Golden Dynasty custom cosmetic. I really love that skin. It is a premium cosmetic, but it is a really good one with a ton of different options. So definitely one that I can recommend if you enjoy building in this kind of style. If you would like to build a similar pagoda but without any mods, I already have a full tutorial for that as well, so you can check that one out on my channel. I will try to link that right here so you can go and build that one if you don't want to get the cosmetic. If you enjoy seeing these build tutorials and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below. So instead of starting out with a foundation, we're actually going to build this on pillars, but if you want to start with foundations, just build a 5x5. That is what we will be working on, but first of all we're going to just raise this up by about 2 pillars, but you can definitely make it higher if you want to. If you want to be able to access this little basement, then you probably want to have foundations underneath, but I just want to have the entrance to the pagoda raised up a little bit. So for now we're just gonna build out this wall. I'm gonna need a little bit of a temporary pillar right here so that we can make this 5 long in total before we have the next pillar on the corner here. Make sure it connects all the way into the ground. Sometimes of course when there's uneven landscapes, some part of your build might be slightly deeper than the other part. Then we basically want to keep repeating this process until we have all sides. So again, I'm going to have a bit of a temporary pillar here in the middle and make this 5 long again. Make sure that we fill in the entire wall wherever we can, and of course making sure that we have a pillar at the very end again, and then we can remove the one in the middle. Again, if there's any gaps below, make sure to fill them all in, and we'll just keep this one going for a little bit further because we want that full 5x5 for this building. So once we have the support, we can of course move on and continue to build. We can do the same thing over here. We should be able to build all the way across and connect from 2 sides. Sometimes you might have to start from the other side if it doesn't give you the foundation support right away. So now that we have our 5x5, what we want to do is bring out our ceilings and add one in each of the corners. Not on the outside. Each of the corners just like this. And then we want to take out some quarter ceilings and make sure that we add them right next to it. So we're basically moving the snap points a bit by having these parts around the corners, because now we can make sure that we can align 2 ceilings in the middle of each of these walls, which is what we want for the entrances. And yeah, we're going to do that on all sides, and then finally we can just fill in the middle. Now ideally we want to have some extra supports here in the middle. For now we're going to have a temporary one just over there so that we can place in the middle ceiling, and then we want to have a pillar in the middle so that we have that extra point of support for the entire build, and then we can fill in the remaining ceiling. So that is the start little box that we want to be making. We can then take out a stairs, so wherever you want to be the main entrance, you can add in the stairs. Of course, we want to snap them from those 2 ceilings that we added in the middle, make them go all the way down into the landscape, and then we can fill in the sides of this staircase up to the entrance too. So yeah, we just want to add in some slope walls first, and then some full walls of course to get this entrance going, and then we want to take out some railings. We can add those along the sides of that staircase. So that's just a nice way to get up to the entrance here. And then what I did on the other sides was kind of creating some landing platforms. So we basically have from the middle some platforms that kind of stick out like this, just so your flyers can easily land on there and park there. We want to add a bit of extra support, so we'll have some slope walls going into the build like this, And we'll do that for all different sides. So we can actually continue that over here. Continue over there. And do the same here on this end. Oh, not that one. Just like this. So that they're all a bit more supported. And then on the sides of this, I would add the railings. You could also add them at the end. Kind of depending whether you want to make it easier to just take off. Or you want to add a little bit more security. Could be something said for having a bit more security, especially if you build it around the edge of a cliff. Then we can start on the first layer here of the pagoda. What we want to do is we want to start adding our gateways. This is why we have those ceilings where we added them in so that we can snap our gate frames right in those spots. Then we can take out our pillars as well, and we raise these up by 5 in total. So from the corners we want to raise this up by 5 so that we get a bit more height on this build for this first layer. There we go. And then we can actually also add in some beams here at the bottom to kind of separate the stone foundation that we'll change it into with the skins to the actual build itself. And then we can have some half beams right next to it so that they end all the way nicely next to the gates themselves. As for the rest of the build, we want to start bringing up our walls. We can bring them up all the way and start connecting them above the gate and bring them back down over here on this side. We can do that for all different sides. So yeah, we just bring out a bunch of our walls all the way around just like this. And again over here we'll do exactly the same. So we can just bring this across, bring that back down. There we go. And then the same over here. Continue this to the end and bring it all the way back down. And then obviously what we need to do is take out some quarter walls as well and fill in these gaps next to the gateways. So, well, because we don't want them, of course. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we fill all of these in on each side of the pagoda, of course. And then the first layer, well, it's looking really bland, of course, but especially once we start using the skins, it's gonna look very nice indeed. And we'll build it all the way up and back down on that side. Then we want to bring out the beams again, and right here we want to add in them just like so. So basically moving to the top of the gate, that's what we want to do, and we're going to go all the way around. Then we want to have the half beam again and bring it closer to those gates for each of the different sides, of course. So just go around until we have all of them everywhere. And then we actually also want to add in some pillars. So right over here we're going to add in some extra pillars for just a little bit of extra detailing. So we'll bring those up until the beam that we have created. So we want to do that on all sides. So once again we're just going to go around until we have managed to add that in everywhere. There we go, trying not to misplace them. And yeah, then we have a little bit of extra pillars on each side. Now, of course, if you want to secure this, you definitely want to add in some dino gates so that, yeah, you have the option to close them. But for now, we will open them because it's easier during the building to be able to access from any side. Then we can take out some roofs. We want to add 3 of them here in the middle, and we want to do that for all the different sides here. So yeah, we're slowly going to build up the first roof, which of course is a very important part of this build. We'll have some corners here so that we have the roof really going all the way around. And just like that, we can connect all the different sides up. Then we want to take out our ramps, and we can actually add another layer here to the roof. We can do that for all of the different sides. So kind of creating a little bit of a curve going into this roof now. And yeah, we want to continue that, but then we actually want to bring out these ramps for another layer and extend them by 1 more on both of the sides. So we're just going to make this roof have an even bigger overhang. I think it really adds an extra little bit of character. So yeah, we just want to go round and add those extra pieces in. So it's going to be quite a big roof for this first layer, but in the end it's going to look very, very nice indeed. And then finally we want to take out our ramp corners, which are part of the same roof triangles as the normal corners, and we can add them right in on the edges to make sure that this first layer of the roof will be completed. There we go. Just a few more, and then we have the first layer of the roof complete. Of course, it doesn't look as good yet, but once we start skinning, we will definitely see a big transformation happening. Then we can take out our pillars and we can add 4 of them on this corner, and that means we can add them on all of the corners of this build. So yeah, build them up by 4 in total for all these different edges. Then right now we want to start by adding the first layer. We actually want to make sure that these are inside out for the skin options, and we don't have to flip them, and we can go all the way around this build. After that, we can take out our ceilings and we can actually add a nice little walkway all the way around the outside over here. There we go. That will be the first little like balcony walkway that we'll add. And we want to make sure that this is nicely supported. So we're going to have some ramps over here just to make sure that this looks a little bit nicer and has a little bit more detail going on. Then we also want to add 2 pillars here on the corners, 2 pillars over there on the corner, same over here, and same over there. And then of course in between those we can actually add some railings here on the outside to make sure that you don't fall off whilst walking around on this layer. Let's not misplace any of them, and then just slowly keep going, adding in all of the different railings around the build. Now for the pagoda, of course you could build a staircase all the way up, but that's going to take away a lot of the space that you have available on the inside. Now I used some ASR pieces. If you don't know, Architect Structures Remastered adds a lot of improvements to the base game pieces, including for example a televator, which lets you instantly jump up and teleport to the next layer, which means I don't need any stairs. You could of course do something similar with just regular teleporters if you're unofficial, but what we can also do of course is adding in a ladder, and then you can kind of decide any of these spots where you'd want the ladder. I probably just go for the middle in this one, so I have more rooms along the sides, and it's actually easier to combine the ladder going all the way from the top to the bottom. But yeah, it's totally up to you where you want to have the ladder. You could have it in different corners each time. The only downside for this layer is, of course, that if you have it there, it wouldn't be completely in the corner. It would kind of just be there. But yeah, definitely play around, see which option you like the most. But that is an easy way to get up to this layer. Then next up is quite simple. Between these pillars in the middle, we want to make sure that we add in some double doors to all the different sides, and we can of course actually add in the door so that you can close them off if you want to. Again, we're going to open them up just for later purposes. It's going to be easier to be able to go in and out whenever we need to, and then we can kind of just fill up this wall all the way to the top of the pillars. So again, we want to go around and make sure that we add all of these walls in. There we go, and just keep going around. Oh no, not there. Just want to fill in all of the different walls. They look quite plain right now, but of course playing around with the different options within the skin will unlock some pretty cool designs for them. And then it's also time to start adding in the roofs. Here we want to start with normal roofs going around the sides of the building here. So we just want to add in these pieces one by one, and of course the actual corner pieces again, so they meet up with those other pillars that we already placed down. And we want to do this all the way around the entire pagoda, of course, just like this. Then once more, we can take out our ramps for the next layer, and we also want to extend this again. So we want to make sure that we have this corner going on. Then we can fill in this entire side of the building, make that stick out a little bit further, and we'll do this for each of the different sides of the building. So yeah, we just want to keep adding in these ramps to shape up our roof a little bit, and we can keep this going. So it is kind of the same roof, but it of course just is a slightly different start because we have gone in a little bit with the base shape, but the idea is still very much the same, and it will give a really cool effect once it is fully built up. And now of course we want to also fill in these corners with the ramp corners on all of the different sides. So once again, we'll go around, we'll add all of these in, and then we'll have another layer of the pagoda build up. So yeah, even though it looks quite cool, it is not too difficult to build. There we go. So that is another layer. You can see how the building is starting to take shape now. And now for the next layer, we can actually start adding in the walkway right away. So instead of going up by one, we just want to add a walkway around the edge right above the final layer of the roof. So it's a lot closer together now. We want to take out our half pillars and add those on the corners this time for some extra little details. And then we want to take out our railings again. And of course, once again, add them around the outside of the building here. And we want to just make sure that we do that all the way around. We want to have some nice, safe walkways around our pagoda. Some nice balconies to enjoy those incredible views around the build. Then we'll take our pillars out again, and we can add 3 on this corner. And we, of course, then want to add 3 on every corner of the build, just to make sure that we have the right height. We can also, of course, start filling in the next layer again. You could, of course, choose to have your ladder connected up somewhere else, but in my case, I'm just going to keep it in the middle just to keep things a little bit easier for myself. But again, you can definitely play around with where you want the ladder if you maybe want to have it in a corner each time, so you don't have to have one big ladder going all the way up from bottom to top. But you know, it is also quite convenient, of course. Then we want to add some more double doors all the way around the edges here. So once again, so we have access to all of our balconies. We can actually add in some of the doors, of course, if you want to be able to close them off so they're safe to use. We can do that everywhere. And then we can take out our normal walls and just kind of fill in the rest of the wall. So we do that here, and we can do that all over on the different corners or different sides of the building, just like this, shaping up the final layer of the pagoda. So the concept for the roof is the same. However, we're going to start with the roofs on the inside now. So we're going to have one of these on each side. Then we can bring out the corner pieces, of course, to fill in the actual corners for this roof. And then the top is where it gets very interesting. This only works with the Golden Dynasty cosmetics. You want to have just a normal ceiling there in the middle, of course, because, well, there's not really any other options. If you do not have Golden Dynasty but still want to attempt to build this and maybe change it with different cosmetics or maybe with some paint, then you probably just want to kind of make a little roof like this. But with Golden Dynasty, we actually can change this ceiling into a very nice top for the build. But we want to add a pillar, and then we want to add another ceiling. It's going to look really silly now, but once we start skinning this place, trust me, it will look very, very cool. We then want to take out our ramps, of course, and then we want to do the same thing again. We want to have 2 layers of ramps here around the outside, and we'll do this, of course, for all of the different layers. And let's not try to misplace them all the time. But yeah, we just want to extend this roof again. So we've gone in by 1 more again. So it is still the kind of same well, idea or kind of shape, but it is once again a little bit smaller because we went one in to our build again. But yeah, we do have those nice swinging roofs. Then of course we add in the ramp corners to finish this section of the roof. There we go. And we want to do the same over here, and once more, same over there. There we go. So that is pretty much all you need to build. If you want some Desmodus parking spots, what you can do, for example, on this layer, the middle layer, you can add in some extra ceilings, because they will be able to latch to that, kind of hang upside down here. And that's quite a convenient way to park them, I've found. So yeah, if you want those, then you'll have to add a little layer in here. I mean, they can latch, of course, to anything, but that just makes it a little easier. So they're actually hanging upside down, which is quite convenient, and that definitely is not supposed to be there. But yeah, that is how you build it all. Now let's see how you skin it all. Okay, I'm going to show you how to skin this all by skinning this side of the building. And then, of course, you just kind of apply that to all the different sides. The only different things are, of course, these landing platforms. So let's start with those quite easily. We just want to make sure that we have some nice wooden frames. Then I would use the golden skin here on the sides so that we get some nice looking structures here. And then we actually want to change these variants. So what you want to do is go into the menu, and we want to go for the open lattice wall. That is quite nice. I'm actually going to save myself some time here by using this copy tool. If you want to know more about that, I made a video about the tools that I usually use. So it is easier for you to do the same, but you can see now I can just kind of paste the settings that I used over to the other pieces without having to go into the menu. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do that on official, so you'll have to do it manually for each of those. So yeah, that's how we do the little supports. That's the only thing that is, of course, different side by side. So what we want to do now here for the entrance is we just want to make a nice staircase, of course, going in with the normal pagoda structures, and then the golden set here again on the side of the building. We can also use the golden set over here on this side of the building. And then what we might want to do is change some of these variants. You could either go fully gold, or maybe you can have a little bit of wood in there. I personally quite like this one. As for the slope walls, we also want to go for the wooden variants, so that we still have like the golden accents in there, but it's a little bit less annoying. So yeah, we go for the wooden variants on all of those. There we go. So that's the entrance. Then for the main basic structure, we want to use the building structures. So we're going to do the first layer. So all of these walls and pillars up to where we actually started building the pagoda, we want to skin those. You will see that there is actually still a metal wall behind it. If you want to reach that, the easiest way is to pick up one of the structures, maybe one of the ceilings, so you can get in there, and then just apply those structures, or break open a wall here on the side and then apply the structures. You do see we have a double golden line. So what probably we want to do here at the bottom is have this one, no pillars and no ornaments, so it's just a blank wall. And then of course we want to copy that over to all of the different ones. So we'll copy this and we'll paste that over. Sometimes it takes like 2 times for it to paste, but there we go. So that is like the foundation that you want to do for the entire building. And then we can start skinning these walls. Now it's going to start quite easily with the normal pagoda structures. We want to skin the top layer here. We want to bring the pillars, and we want to do all of the pillars and beams to begin with. So yeah, we're just going to start with these going all the way around. Now you could keep these round pillars. I personally also quite like the look of the normal pillars, so you might want to change them all to be the square ones instead. That's kind of up to your personal preference. As for the top layer here, these I would change to these wooden boards. So again, we want to make sure that we do that for the entire layer. So we'll paste these all to those skins, and you can see those lovely wood textures. Then we still continue with the normal pagoda structures. We want to have one layer up here. We want to have these layers down the side as well as here at the very bottom. So we want to change all of these just to the normal structures, and then the golden ones we can use over here at the side. And then for the gates itself, you want to use the golden gates skin. So what we want to do, we want to find the metal gateway. There's a bunch of different variants, as you can see. I quite like this one, so the wooden gate or the wooden gate with golden pillars. Kind of this depends on whether you want to be able to look inside through the gate or not. But as you can see, that looks quite nice, even as there's a little extra roof there. And then the gates itself, you can of course also kind of make sure that you match. So maybe the wooden gate is probably the best fit for this. Adds in a little bit of red as well. Some nice fancy variants on there for sure. And then here at the very bottom layers, we also want to make sure that the first layers, or in the case of the quarters, the first two, are going to be the wood variant. So the whole bottom layer, I would use the wooden variant for just a nice little foundation, basically. Kind of sets it nicely apart. Then for these golden walls here, we want to go for the open lattice wall, because that is quite nice. So we can do 2 of those on this side, and then the same over here, just because those look very nice. So that's how we would skin the first layer. You see that already transforms it in quite a big way. And then we can take out our pagoda structures again and start skinning the roofs itself. And this is really where the magic starts to happen. As you can see, get some of these amazing curves in the building and some really cool supports here below it as well. We do want to make some changes on the outer edge. We want to make sure that we do no ornaments and no top beam, so that it is just a clean variant, because, well, this support doesn't make a lot of sense if it's not connected to anything. And you want to make sure that you add that for everything. Even here on the corners, we want to make sure that we have no ornaments, because otherwise it looks a little bit weird. So yeah, we want to do that for the entire layer, of course. And then for the next layer, all you need to do is make sure that there's no top beam, so only the ornaments, because in this layer the ornaments do make sense because they kind of connect nicely to the building, adding a whole layer of extra details. So here you just want to remove that top beam, and then of course for everything you don't need to do anything to the corners. And for the next layer we also don't really need to change anything necessarily. Then we can have some pillars again here on this corner. We can of course make sure that those pillars continue all the way. We can also change these pillars, and again you can choose whether you want to keep the round variants or whether you want to go for the more square variants. We also want to skin these, and then we want to change those ramps into the first version of the wooden stairs, so they look a little bit more like some proper supports here. And then what we can also do is of course skin the walkway, and of course all of the ceilings on the inside. For all of the layers you can just also skin in the pagoda structures. Then we want to take out the golden structures here for the very edge, so we can get that nice little edge going, as well as for this layer here. We want to change that to the smaller lattice wall, and we want to do that for all of the sides. And this is why we rotated these walls, so that we get actually that nice golden beam at the outside here, to just give that a little bit of extra spice and detail to this wall. And then we can take out our golden structures again for the next layer, and we can basically start to skin every layer of this. For these ones over here, we probably want to go for the open lattice wall again, just to kind of function as some kind of window, and they look quite nice. For the doorway itself, I'd probably go for the rounder door. And then of course we also want to make sure that the doorway itself is going to be that rounder doorway, so that, you know, it looks very nice. We have some nice golden doorway skins there. And then over here we want to once again go for the smaller lattice wall, but in this case of course those details will be on the inside rather than on the outside, but you still get some nice lines in there as a little bit of extra detail. And then of course, if you added the extra layers here for this modus, you want to make sure that you don't forget to skin those so they look very nice. And then of course we can continue onto the roof. Now the same principles that we did below count for this layer, so make sure to remove the ornaments and the top beam from all of the bottom layer of the roof. Then only remove the top beam over here. And then these, you also want to remove the top beam for this layer, because as you can see, otherwise it will show up at the very top. You don't need to do that here because there's no direct like entrances here. But on this layer, you want to also remove the top beam at the top layer. And you can see it's already starting to be transformed into a really cool build. Then the final layer is pretty much the same principle. So we want to have those wooden walkways. Then we want to take out the golden pagoda structures again for these nice railings. We also want to do those on the corners, but you can actually change these into one of these little detailed pieces as just, you know, some extra nice accents on your walkway, quite like those ones. And then over here again, you can of course start skinning these up, so we can have the golden skins over here, more golden skins there, and then finally at the top I would have some wooden skins. And then of course those normal pagoda structures we can also apply to those pillars on the corner. Once again, we can change this doorway into the round one. We can change of course the door itself into a round door. These ones next to the door we want to change to the diamond lattice wall. So we obviously want to do that on both sides of the build. Then this layer we can go for the open lattice wall all the way through to get a little bit of a light and a window in there. And then the top layer, which is the normal pagoda structure, we want to change to the wooden variant again to get a little bit of that wood texture back into the build. And as you can see, that transforms it into quite a nice looking wall. And then we can work on the final layer of the roofs. Again, we just want to apply all of these different skins. And again, you want to remove the ornaments and the top beam here. You want to remove the top beam in this layer. And then finally over here at the top, we want to have the golden structures again. We want to apply one of them there, one to the pillar, and one to the final top. So the top layer, we want to change to the first of these variants. So this nice looking roof, and then this layer in here, we want to change to the second variant. So that's a much rounder one. And you can see combined, that makes for a really nice extra detail at the very top of your build. And there we go. That's what you want to do for all of the different sides, of course. And then you have a very nice looking pagoda, whether it's to use as a parking spot for some of your flyers, or you want to use it as your own base. It will definitely be a really cool tower to transform your builds. If you're wondering about the roofs, I painted the first region green on the original that I built. So let's check that one out in a little bit more detail so you can see the fully built version here. You can actually come and visit this. This is on my community servers. But yeah, you can see this is the way that it looks in action here. So this layer here is for parking some of our flyer tames. As you can see, RG already lined up ready. This one also ready to take off into the canyon and explore all around us. As I said, we don't have ladders, we have the elevators to get up to the different layers. I haven't fully decorated this build yet, but yeah, you can see we have space here. We can hang our motors up on this layer. And then finally, we have the top layer here too. And you can see I painted the roofs green. It's the first region. If you paint that, the roofs will turn into this. I think I used the grass color, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I just think that really adds a little bit of extra character to the place. And if you're wondering about these swinging lanterns, that's not from Golden Dynasty. That's actually from the Chini's skin. You do that on a tech light. To get the right snap point though, we do have an invisible ASR glass ceiling, because otherwise, well, yeah, you can't have the tech light normal way. So that is a little bit more tricky if you do not have ASR. But they're definitely very nice because as you see, those swinging lanterns just add a little bit of extra life to the build. Anyway, that's going to be it for this build tutorial, so hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.